because learning how to manage money is really important. It all starts in childhood. Do you remember the first time you had money as a child? I do. I can still see those quarters as my dad gave me my first allowance. What did I do? Oh, I went to the candy store. My name is Lynne Finch. I admit it, I grew up spending money for fun. I didn't have a checkbook until I went to college, and that's when I paid my own expenses for the first time. When it was time to start allowances, I thought it was a good time. My oldest was 5, and I paid with pennies. We were cheap. I wanted her to learn how to count cash. Her younger sister thought we were playing a fun new game. She was only 3. So I said to her, well, you can play when you can count to 100. She came back the next day, counted to 100, and said, I want to play too. So one day, I didn't have enough cash to pay them. So I grabbed a piece of paper, I wrote their allowance as a number. That was in 1977. It was the beginning of what would become the no cash allowance. Because their money was a number in an account, they had to think before they could spend their money. And we had set some ground rules. They would get a weekly amount, they would have total control, their allowance would never be withheld, they were going to own this money. And our mantra would be, it's your money, you decide. So they had to look at their money as a number in an account. And this is how it would work. They'd update their accounts, we'd head off to the mall, do some shopping, I'd pay for their purchases, we'd come home and they'd subtract from their balance. This was debit card spending, long before debit cards were even around. They even figured out how to transfer money between their accounts. It was like electronic fund transfers. They charged each other fees, thought they had invented the whole idea themselves. As they started getting a little older, I added money responsibilities, expenses. In elementary school, they started paying for their own school supplies. We added more money and more responsibility. By the time they were in high school, they were managing several $100s each semester on common everyday expenses like clothing, entertainment, education, extracurriculars, and phone expenses. Now, where did all this money come from? It all came from us. It was money we would spend on them anyway. We simply gave them control so they could be responsible for the decisions. When they graduated from high school, they had 13 and 15 years of hands-on practice with their own money, a financial education in our own home. Over the years, they knew what their resources were. They had opportunities to get more money. They trusted the system. The choices were theirs. And there were no arguments because the account told all. It was like a financial diary. As parents, the most challenging part was giving up control. It's that feeling you have the first time you let go of a bicycle and watch your child ride away. But with money, we knew they needed to make mistakes just like they would fall off their bicycle and have bumps and bruises. They needed to make mistakes to gain wisdom in making decisions. A $10 mistake by a kid is a gentle lesson. $1,000 by a young adult can be a lingering nightmare. We live in Wisconsin. It gets cold in the winter. One daughter tried to convince us that fashion boots qualified as winter wear. We said, no, we pay for regular boots. You can save for those. And she did. And when she had enough money, she said, oh, I don't want to spend my money on those boots. It was her money. It was her decision. It was a good lesson. One mom told me about her son who had saved enough for an Xbox. That's a considerable amount of saving for any kid. When it was time to go to the store, she said, nah, I don't want you to spend your money on that. I'll buy it. She completely devalued his accomplishment. So what lesson did he learn? Our grandson was standing in front of the Star Wars toy display. Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader? This is a really big decision for a kid who has his own money. Another time he went shopping with his dad and he looked around. He couldn't find anything he could afford that day. So he looked up at his dad, nearly in tears, and said, "Let's go home. I don't have enough money." He didn't beg. He didn't ask his dad to buy anything. He knew what his resources were. Would you believe my grandson is only 7? He's been managing his money for less than 2 years. Kids can do this when we as parents let them. Our kids learned how to negotiate money issues over the years, and they kind of liked haggling with us sometimes. They'd come to us and say, "Hey, Mom, you're paying us too much or too little for these jobs." Yeah, they really did tell us to pay them less for some chores. They even negotiated to pay a share of the cable costs so they could have their own TV upstairs. Even though we gave them control of their money, we retained our overall parental authority. To remind them to do those little things that kids forget, I created helping hands. I posted a list of fees on the refrigerator I deducted from their accounts when they forgot to do something. It was easy because we were a no-cash system. When they discovered they were losing money for things they were supposed to do, helping hands quietly went away. There are learning experiences along the way for parents too. Our daughter had one recently. They were on a vacation. Her son bought a toy spaceship. He agreed to pay her back when they got home. Oh, they got home, he changed his mind, didn't want to pay for the toy, and in one of those parental moments, she gave him an ultimatum. You either pay for the toy or give it to me. Much to her surprise, he handed over the toy. At that point, she might have said, "Hey, buddy, you can't get away with that." But she realized she had changed the rules. She gave him a choice, and he took it. What do you think she learned? Money management, we discovered, is all about making decisions. We wanted our kids to make lots of decisions. We often fell back on our mantra, it's your money, you decide. College brought a new level of responsibility. We deposited our contribution to their school accounts, and they managed it from there. When talking with other parents, we realized, hey, our daughters never called from college to ask for money. One even managed to have $2,000 in her savings account so she could take a trip after graduation. That's when we decided our allowance experience was a success. Our kids could manage money. They were ready for the adult world of financial responsibility. That's also when I decided to finish writing my book. In the end, we understood that money management has two parts, process and principles. Our kids needed to know how to manage money as well as why. Our no cash allowance gave them a consistent, reliable process. We gave them principles to guide them. We were actually happy when one daughter said to us, she hated us because we made her want to pay her bills. Her other daughter said, paying bills doesn't stress me at all. The bottom line is that this approach shapes behavior through positive reinforcement by empowering children to make real decisions. I believe any family can be as successful as we were. In the end, this mom learned that it wasn't about money at all.